All right, today we're going to dig into a new report from Western Michigan University and the Michigan Department of Transportation. And it uncovers a hidden danger that affects pretty much all of us. It's about something we do all the time, crossing the street after the sun goes down.
So let me just ask you, when you step into a crosswalk at night, do you actually feel safe? We kind of assume that we're visible, that we're protected. But as this research shows, that assumption, well, it can be dangerously wrong.
Get a load of this number, 79%. According to the data, that's the percentage of all pedestrian fatalities in 2022 that happened in dark conditions. Not a small fraction, the overwhelming majority. So what on earth is going on here? To really get it, we've got to look at the trend. The report lays out some pretty sobering numbers that show this problem isn't getting better. It's actually getting a whole lot worse. From 2009 to 2022, pedestrian deaths shot up by a staggering 83%. And here's the real kicker. Almost all of that terrifying increase happened at night. That's a huge red flag that something is fundamentally broken in how we light our streets. And this is where it gets really weird. When police show up to these crashes, they almost always classify the street as being lighted. So if the streetlights are on, why aren't drivers seeing people literally right in front of them? This is the central mystery the researchers set out to solve. And that brings us to the core finding of the whole report, what they call the illusion of light. It turns out there's a massive gap between what we think is lit and what's actually safe. So on one side, you have the official crash report. It says, dark, lighted conditions. Basically, that just means there's a streetlight somewhere in the vicinity. But then on the other side, you have what the researchers found when they showed up with scientific light meters. The reality? It was dangerously dark. This chart just shows you how big that illusion really is. The researchers went to the exact locations of fatal and serious injury crashes that were marked down as lighted. What they found is just wild. Nearly 2/3, 64% of them, were in reality dangerously dark. The light just wasn't getting to where it matters most, the crosswalk itself. So what does dangerously dark even mean? Well, it comes down to this unit you see here, lux. It's just a standard way to measure how much light is actually hitting a surface. And safety experts say you need, at a bare minimum, 10 to 20 lux for a pedestrian to be clearly seen. Those dangerously dark sites, they were measuring under 5 lux.
Okay, but the report isn't just doom and gloom. It also tests actual solutions. The researchers looked at new technologies that are designed to finally fix this lighting problem and, maybe build a safer future.
They really focused on two promising innovations. First, these powerful things called LED light bars, and second, a really dynamic approach called smart lighting. The idea behind the LED light bars is actually pretty simple but super effective. Instead of one streetlight trying to light up a huge area, you mount these long 8-foot bars directly over the crosswalk. The whole point is to create a blanket of bright, even light and get rid of those dangerous dark spots where a pedestrian can just disappear. And the results are, well, you can just see it. On the left, that's the before, lots of dark spots, well under 10 lux. On the right, after they installed the light bars, the crosswalk is just bathed in light. We're talking measurements soaring past 100 lux. The entire crossing is brilliantly lit up. Now, this second solution is even more dynamic. It's called smart lighting, and it's basically on demand. When a pedestrian pushes the button, it doesn't just flash a little light. It triggers powerful overhead lights that instantly flood the crosswalk. So it does two things. It makes the person completely visible, and that sudden change in light is a huge signal to grab a driver's attention. So the tech sounds great, right? But does it actually change how people drive? Does it make things safer in the real world? The researchers put it to the test on actual streets. This chart shows you exactly what happened. At one site, during the baseline period, only 9% of drivers yielded. 9%. Adding a standard flashing beacon helped. It jumped to 42%. But look what happened when they added the smart lighting on top of that. The rate shot up to 67%. That is a huge improvement in safety. But what about the drivers who still don't yield? Even for them, the smart lights had a powerful effect. At one site, drivers who didn't stop still slowed down by an average of 9.3 miles per hour. In a potential crash, that is often the difference between a serious injury and a fatality. And here's the key takeaway, straight from the report. This technology was most effective exactly where it was needed the most,
at the crosswalks with the absolute worst street lighting. It's a solution that directly targets the highest risk locations.
So, when you put all this data together, what does it all mean? Well, the path forward seems surprisingly clear, and frankly, a lot brighter. Let's just recap the big points. 1, the whole idea of a lighted street is often just a dangerous illusion. 2, we can't rely on guesswork, we need to actually measure the light. 3, the great news is that tech like light bars and smart lighting works. It works incredibly well. And 4, the data proves it makes more drivers yield and slow down, which is going to save lives. Which really brings us to this final crucial question. This report makes it crystal clear that we have the tools to fix this deadly problem. The technology's here. It's been tested. We know it works. So the only real question left is, what are we waiting for?